1791, suspect inside the building, right here. Right there.
We got people down inside!
Ma'am, are you okay? Stay with us, okay? Stay with us. We're getting you some help. I'm gonna get this off of you. Stay with us. Stay with us, okay?
Fire is not responding until the scene is secure. All units advised.
Welcome to Streetlight 84.
I've been shot so many times. It was so surreal.
She thought she's going to die right there, right then.
It's secure.
Stay with us, ma'am. Stay with us. Stay with us.
And carries her over. There was like a kind of fountain and puts her down.
She said it was like she saw an angel.
There's nothing I can do to survive this except play dead.
Welcome to our third episode of Streetlight 84. And there's my friend Daniel. Daniel, how was your Thanksgiving?
My Thanksgiving was great, man. I had a fun time with the family. Hung out at my sister's house. Parents came through. It was good, man. It was a good one. How about you? How was your Thanksgiving?
Well, I was sick as a dog. My voice is really screwed up. My voice was gone. I was like, hello, how are you? A week ago, I couldn't talk at all, which made my wife Dawn very happy. But, I'm still working on it. I have a sore throat, and I really apologize. So I'm not going to talk so much today, but this story doesn't need a lot of input from us because it's another episode where the story tells itself. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's very inspiring how the outcome has been over the last couple of years of what she went through. It's just one of those things in a blink of an eye. It just shows you anything can happen at any given time. But she's doing the inspiring thing and making the best of this awful, awful situation that she went through.
So we want to do something, and we talked about it just before we came on. We want to do something a little bit out of the ordinary. I'm going to count from 1 to 12. There's a reason behind it. We're going to explain, and I'm not going to bore you, but please listen when I count from 1 to 12. There's a reason behind it. You ready, Daniel?
Go ahead, Hans.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And this number means what, Daniel?
That's how many times Whitney Austin was shot when she was entering work.
September, I believe, right?
September 6th, yes.
September 6, 2018. And she worked at...
She worked at Fifth Third Bank in Cincinnati.
In Cincinnati. She's from Louisville.
Cincinnati. Yeah, she's from Louisville.
It's 9 o'clock. She enters the bank, and right away, she gets shot.
Yeah, she was hit immediately. As soon as she went through the revolving door, she was hit.
How many times?
I believe it was 5 times the first time.
The first time, imagine that. 5 times. 1 shot, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the reason behind it, there's this man, and we're not even going to make him famous or something, or use his name. I think it's wrong. He went through the bank. He decided to just shoot people, managed to kill 3 and injured a few others. And of course, Whitney, a mother of 2 beautiful children, married, happy.
The first time she got hit, her instant reaction was, I'm going to die. I need to call my husband.
The guy came back.
Mm-hmm. And he shot her point blank.
He left, and he came back, and she said she pretended to be dead, but he came back, and she decided to call her husband. Did she succeed to call the husband?
No,
she didn't, right?
Yeah, because by the time she was able to move, he came back and started firing again.
7 times.
Mm-hmm.
7 times. Remember, 5 times the first, 7 the second, 12 times. Do you remember when we talked to the husband, Daniel?
Yeah,
he found out what was happening.
He was a couple hours away from her. He got the call and dropped everything and rushed to go see her.
if he's going to get there, which is I mean, it's about, 100 miles, 80
Yeah.
miles? He did not know if I arrive, is my wife still alive? He talks about it, remember?
Yeah. Just imagine you get a phone call from the police or from the hospital. Your significant other was in an incident. It's a life or death situation. And then you find out, what's going on. You're nowhere near the person. What would go through your mind? And you just get that tragic phone call. They were shot.
But the number by itself, you tell somebody someone was shot 12 times. What are the odds that this person will survive? So please listen to the interview of Whitney Austin, who is the husband.
In this interview, he was saying how chaotic everything was.
Oh
and
my God.
What his mind was going through.
And
Take a
these
listen.
2 hours, Daniel, and these 2 hours seem like 20 hours, right?
Yeah.
When you're
I mean,
driving.
Yeah. Take a listen to what Waller had to say.
September 6, 2018.
Yeah, that's how you say it here. We say it different.
Yeah, September 6th, 2018 began like any other day. Whitney, we both woke up at 6:30, started our day, woke up our kids, got breakfast together. Whitney was in a rush to kind of get out to work. She would go and work in Cincinnati maybe 2 or 3 days a week. We actually just moved into this home a few weeks before, so we were actually just living out of boxes, and she left just before the kids finished breakfast. Just like any other day, we said, "Love you, see you later, see you tomorrow," and that was
Actually,
it.
I remember one thing that was different. It was really sweet. The kids wanted an extra kiss. And so I kissed them both and then, please, please give me another kiss. And so I gave them a second kiss. And then just walked out the door to get in the car and drive up 71 to Cincinnati.
Yeah. So Whitney had already embraced and hugged and kissed everybody, and she was actually out the door. And then our daughter says, "One more kiss, one more kiss, one more kiss." So she dropped all of her stuff down and gave everybody one more hug, and that was it. She went to work, and then kids brushed their teeth. We got in the car. I took them to school. I came home, and I was actually working on a fixture outside. I was up on a ladder. All of a sudden, my phone starts to ring and vibrate, and I looked down at it, and I could see the area code 513. So I knew it was a Cincinnati number. And so I'll go ahead and answer it, And I was actually thinking it could have possibly been Whitney, but I answered it on the speaker. And so I answered, and all of a sudden, there's this cacophony of sirens that are just competing with one another. Like an ambulance. The sound of an ambulance is different than police and different than the fire truck. All of these sounds were blaring in my ear, and so I was jarred and confused, and I immediately thought, a male voice said, "I need to speak with Mr. Austin." And so I immediately thought that Whitney was in a car wreck. She didn't make it to work, and something terrible had happened, because she would have called me to let me know if she had a fender bender or gotten in a wreck or something. So that she wasn't calling me, and that a police officer was asking to speak with me, Mr. Austin, I just assumed that she was dead.
You assumed that?
I assumed that she was dead in a car wreck. Just from hearing all the sirens, and there was other shouting in the background. It was just a really confusing soundscape. So he says, "Mr. Austin, I'm here with your wife, Whitney. She has just been involved in an active shooting, and she's been shot multiple times in her chest. So I lost it." I asked if she was alive, if she was breathing, if I could talk to her. And then I hear Whitney's voice. So let me talk to him. Let me talk to him. And so again, I'm just, it was so surreal. He gives the phone to Whitney, and Whitney says, honey, I've been shot so many times, but I'm breathing. I'm thinking okay. They're going to take me to the hospital in Cincinnati. Get here now. So that was it. I hung up the phone, still trying to make sense of what was happening. And I knew that, you know, this was, I had class to teach later that day. And so the first thing I did was call my boss, and I couldn't even get out the words that Whitney had been shot. And I didn't know how to explain to my boss the situation, but he had to, I couldn't be in my class. I needed him to take care of the class and rush to Cincinnati. I jumped in my car, called my mom. Again, I was being able to say Whitney has been shot was it's hard to get out. The words are hard to get out. And my mom, what? Come get me. So, you know, I think that it was crazy because I needed to get to Whitney, but I also knew that I wasn't right. And I needed someone to be there with me on the ride up. Luckily, my parents' home is in the same direction as the interstate to Cincinnati. So, you know, I slammed on the gas, rushed to my parents' house. My mom was waiting at the end of the street for me to pick her up. She jumped in the car and we fled to Cincinnati. I'd never driven that fast in my life. I was cussing people who were driving slow in the passing lane. I'd never gotten to Cincinnati that fast in my life. It was the very first time that the governor, the computer chip in your car that only allows you to go up to 100 miles an hour ever kicked on. I got to about 102 before it kicked on and started slowing me down.
Louisville to Cincinnati is about 100 miles, so how many miles?
Yeah, so the UC hospital is just a few miles north of the bridge into Cincinnati. I think it's around 100 or so miles.
How long did it take you from here to the hospital?
About an hour.
So you were going pretty fast.
I was definitely going dangerously fast. It was definitely not smart.
What is this like, and this so we understand? I mean, you have no idea how severe, even so she was able to talk to you, but how severe it was. Did you already know about the number? He said
No.
multiple times.
Right, so I had no idea. That's what I was my mom was on her phone checking news reports because this is breaking news, so it wasn't even really in anyone's feed yet because I was one of the first people to be contacted about this.
You heard about it in the car already?
So we turned on the radio and but nothing was on. My mom was just she was looking at her phone, just kind of scrolling through news feeds and through social media trying to see if she could find out. She showed me a picture, and she's of a victim that was a picture that was taken. It was on, one of the. I'm not sure if it was. Well, it was on one of the news feeds, and it was just a picture of a foot, but it was painted toes and painted toenails, and my mom was like, "That's Whitney's foot," and I was just like, "No." It couldn't be, that's not her foot.
Why?
Because when I think about feet, it was just kind of like, a tag on the toe. It's kind of one of those things where you think about a dead person, when you don't see, I didn't see her face. I knew that she'd been shot multiple times, but she had spoken to me and, very, very plainly. I mean, it was concerned, but, she wasn't like gasping for air, so it was just, the whole thing didn't make sense to me because she was able to talk to me, but yet again, she was shot multiple times in the chest. Well, what does that mean, multiple times in the chest? How are you living? How do you survive if you've been shot multiple times in your chest? That doesn't make any sense to me at all. But I had hope that I could get to her and see her alive. And that was really my only concern, was to get to see her as soon as I could. And
So let me get back to it, because I think it has a little story. Going back to the foot. Whose foot was it?
I think it was actually my
it
foot.
was her foot. She was,
So,
yeah, so she was the only woman who was shot in this event. So it was her foot. I just didn't want to believe it, because I associated it with her being dead, and I didn't want to believe that or accept that.
Driving these 100 miles, where these famous moments where 1 second is like an hour. Doing this, driving, I mean, you must have, I mean, what goes through your mind? Your mind plays tricks on you. You go further and further in your imagination, and you literally, I mean, what is it? Do you pray? Do you scream? Do you cry? Because you're so scared. She could be dead by the time you arrive. Still, she was talking to you.
Yeah, it was awful. I mean, just on the way to my mother's house, obviously I wasn't going to run stoplights. So at my first stop, I prayed. I'm not a praying person, but I prayed. And I got on social media, I got on Facebook and asked everyone that to please pray for my wife. And so I didn't know what to do. I was just asking the world to help in some kind of whatever spiritual way to help me, in that moment, to help her, to help our family. I'm thinking about, she's gonna, if she's not there when I arrive, how I'm gonna explain this to my children. I had to call the school on the way up, and I told them, please do not tell my children Whitney has been shot. We're gonna work out a way to, for one of my family members to pick up the kids after school. And they're like, okay, yeah, what is that? I'm sorry, what are you saying? And my wife has been, Whitney Austin, my wife, my children's mother has been shot in Cincinnati, and I'm driving up there. I'm not gonna be able to pick them up. Please protect them from this information. There's been a shooting in Cincinnati, and their mother was shot multiple times in her chest, and that's all I know.
Sorry.
The information that I had was Whitney was shot, but she was alive. She was shot multiple times in her chest. I thought she was dying, and so...
You finally arrived at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go from there.
Okay, so I get to the hospital, and it's also, a weird scene. I've never been to University of Cincinnati Hospital's campus, but they had police trucks everywhere. It was all blocked off. They weren't letting people in because of this. They were trying to figure out what was going on, if this was if there was a terrorist act, if there was more mayhem to be coming. So I really it was just a very odd thing for me. So we couldn't even drive into the parking lot. So I got out of the car, my mom took over the wheel, and I sprinted into the hospital and started shouting at people with badges. My wife was shot, and she is here. Take me to her, please. And so it took about 15 minutes for them to actually figure out who she was. They had her under a different name. It started with like a Z, like Z. I don't even know what it was, but it was some kind of when high-profile people come into the hospital, they'll put them in under a different name so that so media doesn't figure out how to get to them, and so it took me about 15 minutes for them to take me up to the NICU, and I sat there for another few minutes, and then I actually was introduced to some of Whitney's colleagues who had come to be there supportive, and so which is the first time I met her current boss at the time, and her former boss were both there, and another colleague were there who was also trying to help do whatever they could for the situation. And I spoke with the nurses, and they said, "We'll let you back soon. We'll let you back soon." And I was just like, "Let me see my wife. I mean, what's taking so long?" So they finally say, Mr. Austin, your wife is, we're ready to bring you back to see your wife. And so thank God. Finally, so they walked me through, it was only a few steps through the door, and there's this room that she was in, tiny room, maybe 12 feet by 12 feet. And there were no less than 25 people in that room with her. It was packed. All sorts of different specialists were there. And so I walked in. I saw her, under the hospital light, so she was glowing. There was blood everywhere. There were bandages everywhere. She had monitors all over her chest and arm, and tubes going into her throat and everywhere. It was a crazy scene to walk in on. But all 25 people looked at me, smiling. And I didn't know what to do other than my natural reaction was to smile back. And one of the nurses said, "Your wife is a miracle. She's been shot 12 times, but not one organ or artery was touched by a bullet. Now we're monitoring her. She's still in a serious condition, but it is not. It's not critical to the point where we need to have surgery right now. So we're going to let her stabilize, and we'll have surgery on her arm in the morning." Unbelievable.
But that's especially that number. Now you didn't know she was shot 12 times.
No, 12 times.
It tells you. Did you think must be a mistake? It's impossible. Or what did you
That
think?
number, the number was, it was it was an absurd number.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anyone surviving being shot that many times. It was just a miracle. It was incredible. I don't know how any other way to explain it than a miracle that how it all came to pass. It was just surreal. I mean, it's just an incredible story that just it still didn't make sense when they told me. I was still trying to make sense of the whole situation, but I was just so happy and so relieved that she was going to live. And it didn't, at first they said, there's a chance that, she might not be able to throw a football, but as well with a perfect spiral. But it looks like she's going to make a full physical recovery.
What are the odds? Hey, someone was shot 12 times. What are the odds that this person will survive?
The odds of 12 that's a crazy number. 12. It's unheard of. There's people that they've been shot once, didn't make it. Been shot a couple of times or a few times and did not make it. She was shot 12 times. It was just, just like she said, when she saw Officer Staples, she felt like she saw an angel. There was definitely an angel looking over her that day. Without a doubt, somebody was overlooking her.
Fortunately, the police came and he was shot.
Yeah, they
And then
did an
there's-
incredible job the way that they handled the situation.
But then an angel came, Officer Stables. He was Whitney's savior. She said, Officer Stables arrived, lifted her up, and carried her out of the bank. She knew she's going to survive. Beautiful story.
So we'll go into the interview right now to where we'll hear from Officer Staples.
So please listen to him and his version, what happened. It's beautiful.
So this is the guy that I made eye contact with. Officer Toyes was somewhere doing the work.
Another part of the team.
But he was in my vantage point, and it was like, oh my God, here's my savior. Here's the man who's going to save me. And I just kept hollering at him.
She did.
So you saw her from your vantage point. You saw her lying there?
Yes, she was in the turnstile, laying in the turnstile. When I got there, they were still.
But yet you couldn't get to her because
There were still
shooter
shots
active
being
shooter.
fired. Right.
Well, what was that like? You see this woman.
First was safety, both of our safety, and then trying to stop the threat. But another part of the team was doing that because I couldn't see the threat. I could see Whitney, and hers was to stay down until we could stop the threat. And then when I heard that one of the threats were down, because we didn't know how many we had, I asked another officer to help me pick her up. And then from there, we took her to a safe place.
You carried her, or how did you?
It was a bear hug. She still wanted to walk. You know, she's trying to walk, but it's a bear hug. And
She tried to walk with
flagpole there has a big marble part around it that we was using for protection if there was still any active shooter. But the threat had been stopped.
So she still wanted to walk?
Well, in my defense, I was only shot once from the belly button down. Everything was from the belly button up, and the one below my belly button had just grazed the top of my foot. So it wasn't unheard of.
All right. But mine was wanting to expeditiously get her to somewhere safe.
Right. You kept in touch with her?
Yes. And after we got into a safe place, I wanted to ask. We had another officer came and put a tourniquet on her arm to kind of stop the bleeding, stop some of the bleed. And then I asked her, did she want me to call anyone? And of course, it was her husband. Calling her husband. She gave me her phone number first. I call and it says, "This is Whitney," and I'm, oh my God.
My brain wasn't working clearly.
That time I called her husband and.
What did you tell him?
Hey, there had been an incident here in Cincinnati, and of course it was yes, and she had been injured. At that time, he wanted to talk to her as well, so I let phone down to her ear, and she was able to tell him exactly what had happened. I had been shot. Of course, she said, "I'm calling her dad, and we're on the way." And it didn't take long. I was thinking to call him back to say, "Hey, she's on her way to the hospital," and he called me and said, "He's almost at the hospital." Oh, wow.
Where did he come from?
Louisville, correct?
From Louisville. Wow.
Which is about an hour,
Right.
hour and a half away.
Yeah. I think it was a race between my husband and my dad to get up here. But
Well, it was, if you say a race, and if even so, not knowing, it was a race could have been a race against time.
right.
He didn't know if he comes, tell me if I'm wrong, but he didn't know if he comes, if he's too late. He didn't know the impact of your...
No, we didn't tell
you
him
know?
where
You didn't
where
tell
she
him.
was shot or
Right.
anything.
No, but I did say I've been shot all over.
She said that?
Yeah, and I was like,
hurts. And it hurts really bad, but my heart is beating strong, my breathing is strong, and I know that my brain is working fine. So get up here. And we dispute it, but I don't think my husband and I dispute this, but I don't even think I said I love you. It was just boom, 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 get here now. And then that was it. And then I went on to the next concern, which was, where's the ambulance? I'm in a lot of pain. I need to get to the hospital.
fire has to wait until after we say it's safe
Sure.
for them to come in. We didn't know how many shooters we had, so with applying the tourniquet to stop the bleed, we was able to soon say, hey, fire can come in.
I already asked Officer Toyas about that. In your career, your long career, thankfully, I hope you never had a situation like that. But after all that has happened, I mean, how would you describe, and I asked Officer Toyas, how would you describe her, how she reacted? Because I believe normally the trauma must be incredible for a person that's been shot 12 times. But she was more likely under control, wasn't she?
Yes. I described her as a woman with a will and a zeal to see her family
Right.
and to live again. First thing she says was, hey, you have to help me. I'm a mother, and I have 2 little ones. You have to help me. And of course, first was, well, stay down. And then second was, hey, as soon as we can, we'll get you to a safe spot. And we'll be able to do whatever aid we can do until fire comes and render the rest of the aid to get her to the hospital. But she was a woman that, hey, I want to see my family again. I want to see my kids again. I want to be a mommy, and that's what she displayed to me.
Did that surprise you? Because if you have victims, even under not that...
Yeah, I mean, a lot start with how bad am I shot, or do
Right.
you think I'm going to make it? And,
Right.
but hers was straight to family. And I give her that.
Do
She
you
did
sometimes
good.
think about this moment? I mean, you've had so many in your life,
There's
both of you.
times that I think about it a lot. But I give all credit to the man upstairs that he protected us, and after we arrived, we was able to stop the threat, and no one else was able to get hurt.
It's true.
And you somehow bonded in a way
Yeah,
that is somehow...
I guess it started with her dad.
inexistent.
Because her dad, I'm sitting waiting to be interviewed after there's a incident and you're involved. Where you go back and then you're interviewed, and they want to know why it's still fresh in their mind what happened. And while I'm sitting there, I get a note saying I need to see the guy who helped save my daughter. And I'm like, well, you need to see. Well, really, I said you need to see everybody because it was a teamwork. Al Staples, I didn't do it by myself. I was one that had firsthand with her, but there was a team that was actively involved in the stopping the threat. There was other teams that was stopping other people from getting close. I mean, it started from somebody that took initiative to say, hey, I think I heard shots, and dial 911. So to the 911, relaying it to the dispatcher relaying it to us, and then we're responding. So, I mean, it was a teamwork of a lot of people that put that together.
Now, the other thing is, how do you overcome that psychologically? How do you overcome that? How do you go to bed at night, close your eyes and fall asleep? I mean, it must have been hell for her in the beginning. It must have been, I mean, horrifying. And we talk about that. And she's in therapy, of course, but she's a very strong woman, isn't she, Daniel?
Yeah. She came out on the other side of this just very, very willpower to make a difference in the world that we live in today, which is incredible. You know, she didn't go down a dark path. She didn't cry wolf. She said, I'm going to make a difference. She's doing it. It's very, very, very remarkable what she's doing.
So please join us now for the interviews that we did at the time when we had the great honor to meet her. And this interview is so unbelievable. And you will realize, you will find in this interview, you will know that this woman is so strong.
It's the moment now, I mean, you know, standing here where it happened, it must still be strange, to say the least, for you.
It is. It was a life-changing day. But
When you heard how often Whitney was shot, did you even, I mean, you stand here with her now, you're here with her now. Isn't it?
doctors did a great job.
Doctors did a great job, and I got really lucky. they went into the perfect spots for my survival. You know, people can get shot once and they don't live, but somehow I was shot 12 times and I'm okay.
When you say you were lucky about the location, I don't understand. Can you explain that?
Sure, so I was shot 12 times, but not a single bullet hit a major organ or artery. So 12 times, that's 12 chances. Any one of them could have gone the wrong way, but 12 times they went the right way for me. And so that's why I keep asking people like Toyez and others to show up for Whitney Strong, because I am so grateful that I'm here and that I get to do this work and that I get to be with my family, most importantly. So yeah, it could have gone wrong any one of those 12 times.
And forgive me for asking, and if I'm not asking sensitive enough, you have to tell me. It's not my intention to be not sensitive. But when you talk about being shot 12 times, every time you were shot, you must have thought, this is it. I mean, I will not survive that shot. And you see this man standing in front of you.
Yeah, well, first off, I did not see the shooter ever. I was in my own little world of a revolving door. And from the moment I was shot the first time to the moment they arrived was exactly 1 minute. Do you know that? 1 minute, exactly 1 minute. 1:00. And so in that 1 minute, I took all those 12 bullets, but I was also thinking, how do I survive? You know, I looked out here on the square. Nobody was here to save me. I tried to get up and I wasn't strong enough because my arms were so badly damaged. And then I went to try to call 911, and when I moved my left arm, it was so badly injured I couldn't even get to my phone. And so I very quickly realized there's nothing I can do to survive this except play dead. So while I'm playing dead, I'm also praying to God, I'm thinking about my family, and I was also thinking about how ridiculous it was that I thought I was immune to gun violence, that it would never strike me, and it was at that moment literally striking me. So all those things I thought about in that 1 minute period. And then on a dime, I look over here. I mean, now was more over here, but I make eye contact with Officer Al Staples, and I immediately thought, okay, now I have a way to live. Now I have a way to survive this situation. And so I just started communicating with him, and I couldn't see what was happening behind me. I couldn't see what Officer Toyez was doing, but they were all doing everything right to save my life, and I just needed them to sweep in and do their work.
But you were, I have to understand that you were still inside when they
I was in the
arrived?
revolving door.
In the revolving door.
Yep.
How did you get to the revolving door?
That was the entryway into the building. So I was
you
just
came
walking
in,
into the building.
That's exactly when you came in, it happened.
Right, yeah. Yep.
Didn't he come back for you again?
You know, Officer Toyez might be able to weigh in on that. I have not watched the footage. I don't think it's a healthy thing for me to do. But I did take a lot of bullets within a very short period of time. I'm just not sure if he walked away or came back.
I don't know exactly. I didn't watch a whole lot afterwards either.
You said one thing that and we were standing where it happened with you. You said one thing that is still stuck in my mind is, but I'm a mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's.
That kept you.
Yep, absolutely. You know, they were 5 and 7 when this happened, and I mean, no child deserves to lose a parent, but the younger a child is, the more difficult, you know, their future without a mommy.
But that thought went through your head even when it happened or after it happened right away? Was it gave you that unexplainable strength and power somehow, your children?
Yeah, I thought about them the entire time. No, I love my husband very, very much. But I think that there's something about being a mommy. You know, your job is to protect your children and to take care of them. And how am I going to protect them if I'm dead? How are they going to be okay if I'm not here? How is my husband going to be okay if I'm not here? And so, yeah, there was a really strong drive to live for them and do everything I could to survive. But the facts at the time were there really wasn't much of anything I could do to save myself except play dead. And then the rest is history because of CPD and Cincinnati Police Department.
But that moment, and if you don't mind, we have to go back because there's something I still don't understand. The shooter, you were shot several times, but then he left and he came back? That's as I understand, right?
I don't know exactly what he was doing because I never saw him with my own eyes, but definitely when I pushed on the door the first time, there was a huge barrage of bullets that hit me and forced me to the ground. And when I hit the ground, that's when I started thinking about, I have to live. How do I live? And I couldn't push myself up because I was so badly damaged. Nobody was on the square, so no one was going to rescue me. And then I thought, well, I'll call 911. And I tried to move my arm, which was just a dummy arm at this point, but I did move some. And when I moved, that's when the next barrage of bullets came.
So he came back.
Right. And so that's when, I mean, that was the most devastating moment. That was the moment where I thought, I'm dead. I mean, all I can do is play dead. He knows I'm not dead. There's nothing I can do. And so I really stopped thinking about that, the threat, him, and I thought about my family. And I thought about how bad it would be without me, and also not wanting to die, you know, that this was too soon, that I was too young to die, that I had so many other things that I wanted to still do in my life, and I prayed. And then that's when the officers arrived, which makes it sound like I said a really good prayer.
As the Whitney, before September 6, 1918, and the Whitney today, have they changed? Are they different people?
Oh yeah, for sure. In a lot of different ways. I don't let many things bother me because I understand how fragile life is. I also am very grateful. You know, I have a lot of moments where I just kind of sit back and I look at our kids and I think about how lucky I am to be here and just be with them. And then of course there's Whitney Strong, which is entirely different. You know, I was a banker. I was living a corporate lifestyle, and now running a nonprofit and working even harder than I did in the corporate world, but for a reason that is so very important to me, making sure that we do what we can to prevent gun violence.
But there's also backlash, right? You get, which is such what you're doing, is such a logical and honorable thing to do, to teach people to have a law that have responsible gun ownership, for instance, mental illness, people have to be screened better, and all this. But every person you tell your story says, yes, that's what they need, but yet you have enemies. How do you explain that?
Well, nobody agrees upon everything. And in the United States, certainly there are some people, I believe the minority, that don't want to see any change on this issue. Yeah, I probably want to say that differently.
Should I put this cat in the bathroom?
Just walked right.
I know, I loved it. I loved it. I
He
love
has
this
avoided you all the whole time.
Yeah.
This is Al.
He's finally
He's
getting
different,
comfortable.
right?
Yeah,
That's a
he
different
doesn't
cat.
like humans.
Al,
Yeah, that's Alfonso.
Oh, great.
He does the aloe rubbing every so often, but it takes him a minute to start getting warm.
Hey Al, you want to be on?
yeah, put him.
Do you want to be on German TV?
Hey Al, this one doesn't like you. He doesn't want you in the picture.
You want to move him real quick since I have him on the mic?
Yep.
It's okay, Al.
God, what a story.
He just got comfortable enough to visit with you all, and you're kicking him out.
Do you want to still keep it
Yeah,
going?
it was very strong. Yeah. Because now we're coming to that point. Let me wait when he's back. 'Cause there are people out there who still don't agree with your mission, your goal, and what you want to have change. How do you? I mean, is that a big thing that bothers you, or did you know even before that it had to come? It comes with a
Yeah.
territory, as you say.
Yeah, well, we knew from the beginning in starting Whitney Strong that there would be people opposed to what we do. But we started an organization that we feel is really different from many of the other organizations trying to make change, in that we're very inclusive. We focus on what we can all agree upon and not what we all have as differences. And so with Whitney Strong Solutions, we really feel like most people, if you can have a conversation, that will agree and that we can move forward together. So yeah, there are certainly people who disagree with us, and that's hard sometimes, but we focus on the majority, and the majority of Americans do support what we do.
We also were invited, and thank you for that evening, where the people, it's in a dominant black community where they were being taught by the nurse, how to
Stop the bleed.
stop the bleed. And that is incredible, because even for me, I realized I know so little about it. And that's another thing you do. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example of focusing on solutions that everybody can agree upon. So that training is called Stop the Bleed, and I got turned onto it because one of the trips up to Cincinnati for surgery, one of the nurses pulled me aside and said, "Do you know that this is what saved your life? That this helped save your life?" "No, I have no idea. What is this?" And so Stop the Bleed teaches everyday people how to use pressure and tourniquets to control blood loss. Because if you don't do that, someone can die in less than 5 minutes.
And please tell me, because the tourniquet has played a role in your
Right.
being saved, and by someone who wasn't the first responder, not the first responder,
The police officer was
yeah, I know, but he wasn't
a medical
it wasn't a
practitioner.
medical
Right.
practitioner. Tell me about
Yeah, as soon as I was pulled from the revolving door by the police officers, they led me aside and sat me at a bench, and they put 2 tourniquets on my left arm to control the bleeding until the ambulance could arrive.
that. And if he would not have been trained, I'm just saying,
Right,
what could have happened?
right. I could have died. It just takes 5 minutes, and I think it took more than 5 minutes before the ambulance arrived. So I was sitting on the bench, really laying on the bench with 2 tourniquets, waiting for the medical team to arrive.
What else has changed in your life?
I have to do interviews all the time.
That's very kind. Very cute. Thank you.
And that's a good thing because we have to spread our message, you know.
No, you're right.
No,
It's just
I'm-
double-edged
Dispersion.
sword.
But spreading a message when we get back to I mean, this is a non-profit organization. Now, where do you get the money from, the funds?
Yeah. Running a nonprofit focused on preventing gun violence is not just about me meeting with lawmakers, going into communities and training and Stop the Bleed. You have to have dollars to fund that work. And so a lot of what I do is fundraise, working with individuals who feel drawn to the work, who want to contribute, and then also businesses, foundations, government. You know, it's looking everywhere to find the money to keep it running because it's not like a business. You know, there's no product to sell. There's no service to provide. Actually, I don't really want to say that because we are starting to dabble in those things to bring in new revenue streams. But it's not like a business. You really rely upon people to be generous and ensure that the work can continue.
Yesterday, we were able to accompany you to the State House
Mm-hmm.
and listening to you.
Mm-hmm.
After you were done, the senator who you're supporting said, any questions? And nobody asked anything. And I asked the senator at the interview, don't they come out and have questions, you know, good or bad, or, you know, because they did that before. We heard there was someone else speaking. He said, no. And they couldn't top it. That's what he said. Listening to you, there is no Democrat or Republican. What else is there to say? They couldn't top it. Because you know what you're talking about, because you lived it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Our main role is sharing information that's going to help people and educate the public. So, I mean, that's really our goal, is to...
And that is, you're absolutely right. What do you think when you had that speech yesterday, when you talked, when you sort of a witness sound bites? I mean, you were there, you were talking about it, and you were asking, and almost begging to put your heads together and finally do something, because it's been going on and on. I don't want to get, I'm not even allowed to
Right.
do that. But at the end of the speech, do you have, what is your, from 1 to 10, what is your hope? And you believe that this could be changed, that this, even only parts of it, could be changed.
I am an eternal optimist. So I'm always at a 10. I have to believe that the work we do matters. And it's not just a belief. It is a belief. I really believe that change will come. Now, I can't tell you if it's going to happen next month, or if it's going to take 5 years, or if it's going to take, me turning 80 years old. But I believe that we will see significant change on this issue in my lifetime. And I need everybody else to believe that, because it's not just going to be me and Waller that makes this happen. It will be because most Americans demand it and they show up for it. And so absolutely, I believe that it is going to come. And I'm so thankful for the courageous lawmakers that are willing to stand up for it. And Senator Dolan is just one of them. And we witnessed in June of this year, when we were in Washington, D.C., another set of 65 courageous lawmakers with the passage of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. And so I say all the time, no one's going to stop us because we saw Congress come together. And if Congress can come together, the Ohio State House can come together, the Kentucky State House can come together. It is all possible. I've seen it with my own eyes.
And your army is growing.
Yes.
What is the motto of what is the name of your organization?
Whitney Strong.
Thank you very much.
This woman is a heroine. I mean, this woman is incredible. She has now a non-profit organization called Whitney Strong. I'm pretty sure you're going to agree with us. Whitney is incredible.
Guys, you can check us out on any podcast platform, Streetlight 84. You can also check out our YouTube page, Streetlight 84, or you can reach us at streetlight84podcast@gmail.com.
Thank you again, and we will see you in a few days for another episode of Streetlight 84. Have a great day and be safe.
See you guys.